Logan Paul. He's famous outside of wrestling. So, and Saudi Arabia, of course, they're not just bringing in WWE anymore. They're doing
Mhm.
huge boxing events. They're doing huge, they're doing UFC events there now as well. So, and with they had Jake Paul, I'm pretty sure he's had boxing fights
Mhm.
in Saudi Arabia. So it makes sense for Logan Paul to be the guy that you put on the posters, you know,
Sure.
all around to sell this pay-per-view. So it makes sense because I think Logan Paul is a bigger deal internationally than he might be to wrestling fans in the
Yep.
United States. Not that he's not a big deal to wrestling fans in the United States, but
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He's more
Well,
famous outside of wrestling than maybe he is inside of it a little bit, if that
he
makes
has a
sense.
global audience, that's for sure.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure. And absolutely, I don't think it's a bad idea to put. And frankly, he's shown that he can go in the ring, so I don't have a problem
Yeah.
with him, taking on Cody for the title. It just, you know, even if they'd made it like just a champion versus champion match
Mm-hmm.
and marketed it that way or something, I feel like I would have been a little more excited for it.
Oh, like
Like
if they
more.
put the US title
No,
on
no.
the line?
If they like no titles were on the line, it was just
Oh, okay.
two of the best having a match. Arguably because they have titles, they're the best.
Yeah.
Having a match. Like I think that would have made me as a fan outside of the international community a
Mm-hmm.
little more excited for it. Just because when you're like, it's for the championship, it's Cody Rhodes defending the title against Logan Paul. I'm like, yeah, and
So
I
you
can
know
see
Cody's gonna
exactly
win.
how that's gonna go.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's just champion versus champion, well, okay, then you just got maybe Logan Paul might be able to eke out a win in that regard
Yeah.
because he's a shady guy with some brass knucks. So I feel like that would have told a more compelling story, but at the same time, that's
Hey,
that's a pretty small gripe. The bigger gripe that I have with the Saudi show, to be honest,
hmm
is that the King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring
hmm
finals are going to be on this show.
why don't you want them on that show?
I want them on a real show, like a
Well, the
good.
Saudi Arabia show is a real show. And like I certainly understand the ethical concerns with working with the government in Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm,
But, push that aside for a second. There are real fans in Saudi Arabia.
for
And
sure.
yeah, and I actually have really enjoyed the last few shows in Saudi Arabia. Like, I really enjoyed how they've treated Sami Zayn and how they've
Yeah,
rallied behind
yeah,
Sami
that's
Zayn
great.
as this
Yeah.
local guy. That really, like, there was something about that really, like, endeared me to that crowd where it's like, well, wait, man. They're entitled. They're wrestling fans, and they're entitled to have
Mm-hmm.
nice things too. So
Yeah,
so
I get
so
what you're getting at.
the king and the queen of the ring being there is fine. And WWE, look, they have to appease the Saudi Sports Authority. I think it is. They
Mm-hmm.
get $50 million a show just to go
Yep.
there. That case in point, Las Vegas just paid WWE a site fee of $5 million to bring WrestleMania 41 there.
Mm-hmm.
5 million to get WrestleMania versus 50 million to put on the
Yeah.
greatest Royal Rumble and the King and the Queen of the Ring, and hopefully great balls of fire emanates from
Oh, I
Saudi Arabia again.
really hope they
I
bring
would
that one up.
love that if that became an annual Saudi Arabia pay-per-view.
Only because every now and again the camera angle would be like someone's head and then the words "eat balls" next to it because they were covering up the GR. So it would be great. It would just say "eat balls."
Eat balls.
And I have like screenshots of Matt Hardy with "eat balls" next to his head that I just look at and giggle every now and again. It's kind of like when Big Cass first went solo
Oh yeah,
and they started doing this big thing on the background on the Titantron, Big Cass, but then Big Cass would come out and stand in front of the
for the
sea,
sea.
and you're just like, oh, they didn't rehearse this.
Yeah, if he'd already been under Chris Jericho's learning tree at that time, he would have known not to do that. But how are we feeling about the King of the Ring and the Queen of the Ring tournament so far? What's our overall impression with how they've been?
It's fine. That's really all I can say about it. And it sucks for me to say that because I was a huge King of the Ring. That was
Mhm.
one of my favorite things every year, where they'd have the qualifying matches and then they do almost, at least the semifinals and the finals in the same night. And I always liked that. I always thought that was a really cool way. And they made it, it was his own event,
Mhm.
which I thought was always very cool. And then it went away, and then they kind of like half-assed it on main event
Yeah.
for a bit,
Yeah.
and like I think Wade Barrett won it that year, and they were like, "You're
Hey, I
King Barrett
remember King
now."
Barrett. King Barrett was just
Mm.
fine.
And I'm like, "But we were all down with the bed. And, you know what? Forget it." So this time around, it and Xavier Woods won it,
Yep.
I think.
Xavier Woods won
You
it.
know, and it's like the King of the Ring used to be a real launching pad for people, right up until Billy Gunn won, and then at that point we were all kind of like, "All right, well, I guess
I
we're
believe
gonna
he
just."
was the one Billy Gunn at that time.
Yes, he had not transitioned into the ass man.
Yes. I remember the Knicks. So the next person to win it after Billy Gunn, or not too far after it, was
Mm.
Edge.
I
And
thought he won it before Billy Gunn, but you're probably correct because you have the encyclopedic knowledge.
well, I remember Edge saying in a promo afterwards, he goes, "Don't worry, everyone. I'm not gonna Billy Gunn this King of the Ring." And
Yikes.
then him and Christian kind of they had their own take on it, where they turned the
Hmm.
King of the Ring into like the Stanley Cup.
Well, yeah, because they
And
got a
then
trophy that
yeah,
year.
they got a trophy
Yeah.
out of it. And then Christian would carry the trophy like behind Edge as he brought it to the
Yeah,
ring. I enjoyed that very much.
that
But
was
yeah,
fun.
I used to like when it was one night, like it was a
Hmm.
single tournament one night. I remember one of the first pay-per-views I ever got was when Owen Hart won the King of the Ring. And I
Hmm.
thought that was very cool because like it takes up the whole pay-per-view and it's just a
Yeah.
cool, unique event. But I actually do like how they've done it this year too, because they're huge tournaments and there's two of them. So basically, like the last few weeks of WWE television have been
Hmm.
all King and Queen of the Ring matches. And so you talked a little bit about how, with Cody Rhodes versus Logan Paul, we
Hmm.
know for sure what's going to happen. Like that's a very predictable outcome. There's
Yeah.
been a bunch of matches in this tournament where I wasn't sure who was going to advance, like
Hmm.
Jey Uso versus Ilya Dragunov, which main evented Raw
Hmm.
on Monday night. I didn't know who was going to win that because on one hand, Jey Uso is like hugely popular right now. He's
Yeah.
selling tons of merchandise. Everybody's doing his entrance, so he's a big, big star. So it's like, all right, well, he seems like someone that could go on to the finals, even
Hmm.
even win, right?
Yeah.
But Ilya Dragunov also has this whole history with Gunther, and
Hmm.
Gunther had already advanced to the finals. So I didn't know between those two who was going to win. So it just made the match like a lot more exciting, in my opinion, anyway. Um,
It's almost
you know,
like they're thinking about the booking
yeah,
and giving you plausible reasons that anyone could win for any time, and then
yeah,
that's kind of a big thing. Um,
yeah, pretty important.
it
But it
it
does
does
like
bring.
that's the difference between staying up for the main event segment on Monday night and going to bed.
Yeah,
Like,
honestly,
so
yeah.